Morning, sunshine.
You saved my life.
I sure as shit didn't. That was all Carlos. He carried you here and he treated you himself, crazy bastard.
Where is he?
He went underground. Bard stockpiled the vaccine, enough to give this city some hope.
He thinks he can do this by himself. I'm going after him.
Wait, did you see the broadcast? They're gonna blow the city sky high. I'm trying to get a hold of someone, anyone with the clearance to stop it. Leave this mess to him. He's a professional.
So am I.
The Resident Evil 3 Remake went gold last month, and there are numerous reviews out there that have already had their say about whether it's a good sequel or remake.
Alright, let me grab my...
That's not the goal of this video. I am not an expert on this game or even this series. There are people far more qualified than I could ever be when it comes to making a hard call on RE3. This video is more just a collection of thoughts I had as I played through the remake and compared it to both 3 Classic and the RE2 remake. If you haven't played RE3 yet, just know that there are spoilers ahead.
Better not.
Let's start with the intro. I think shifting from first person to third person was a great transition, as it only happens once the player catches a glimpse of Jill's reflection in the mirror. It's a nice way to bridge the first person perspective of RE7 and the third person perspective of the rest of the Resident Evil titles. The game makes great use of the UI to mislead the player in this section, where it looks as if the latter is the path to progress, only for Nemesis to barge in and redirect Jill's and the player's destination. It's cool how the game establishes how much more of a threat Nemesis poses compared to regular tyrants, by having it not only withstand the blast of the same kind of rockets that killed Mr. X in RE2, but you can even catch those rockets with its tentacles. RE3 introduces what I can only describe as cinematic injuries, which is whenever Jill is stumbling around as if she's actually in pain, but if you open up the menu, her status is fine. I'm calling it cinematic because, as a performance, it works in the context of the story, but in terms of gameplay, it really does set off some mixed signals. There are some very welcome quality of life improvements in RE3. Jill's and Carlos's base speed are much faster than either Leon or Claire, which makes sense as they would be more accustomed to an active lifestyle with their respective STARS and UVCS training. The other really good thing about movement in RE3 is that if you have sprint mapped to anything other than clicking in the left stick, you no longer have to hold down the sprint button to maintain a faster pace. You kind of need that in RE2 because several enemies could detect a player based on their walking speed, but that's only an issue for one set piece in RE3.
There you are, dickface.
Claire, it's Marvin. How fast can you get back here?
Why? What's that?
I've got something to show you. It's important.
Alright, I'm on my way.
The in-game radio segments are now fully skippable, which is great for repeat runs when you've already heard the same dialogue again and again. There's an indicator for critical hits, which look like subtle flashes of light. It's a good way to indicate that an enemy is getting damaged. I think it's cool that Jill doesn't have any reaction to the zombies during combat compared to Leon and Claire. It's not her first rodeo, so she isn't freaking out when the zombies tank several bullets to the face.
Jesus.
I don't know how much of a hot take this is, but Capcom should have kept the sub-weapons and the escape prompts along with the dodge move, instead of trading one for the other. I'm not a fan over that hold A to eat less shit prompt. A good and bad thing that RE3 does with the inventory is that it no longer pauses the game for every pickup to maintain the flow of the action. Consequently, you have to manually enter the menu now to reorganize items, as opposed to RE2, where you had a chance to reorganize things just the way you wanted to the first time you pick up any item. It's one of the concessions the game has to make to focus more on action. This is something I haven't seen anyone else point out. When Jill picks up the handgun from this corpse as she's escaping from Barjack, her model changes to show her fully kitted out. But not even 10 minutes later, she runs into Carlos and the UBCS at the subway. In 3 Classic, this is where Carlos hands Jill the tactical holsters that increase her inventory by 2 slots and change her model. I'm not trying to CinemaSins the remake here, I just think it's a weird oversight to this game when RE2 was pretty consistent with Leon whenever it came to changing from his civilian clothes to his RPD uniform.
Somebody didn't have time to put his blues on.
There's a good use of parallel dialogue between Brad and Marvin with these 2 lines.
Door behind you, go!
Don't think about it. We're gonna make a run for it.
Come on, Jill. We know how this ends.
No, I don't.
Marvin, come on. Let's get you out of here. Let's go. Are you okay?
Oh, no. Just go. Save yourself.
Come on. It's bad. We gotta get you to hospital
Please,
now.
Claire. We both know how this is going to end. Get out of the city.
I don't know how intentional that was, as the connection between both characters gets revealed later in RE3's campaign. It's cool how this little scene at the beginning of the RPD set piece makes several references in one shot. This cutscene gives context to Marvin's advice to Leon and Claire in RE2.
And be careful. If you see one of those things, no matter who they were, you can't hesitate. Take them out if you can. Or you run. And don't make my mistake. If you see one of those things, uniform or not, you do not hesitate. You take it out. Or you run. Got it?
Yes, sir.
And Brad as a zombie outside of RPD is a reference to Brad Zombie spawning in the tunnel in RE2 Classic if you can make it to the RPD without picking up any items. Carlos has 2 different comments on Brad's poster, depending on whether you've killed him.
Sorry, poster boy. Oof. You look better on the poster, Brad.
There's enough changes to the RPD's layout to steer the player towards the intended path. When you get to the supply room, the buttons are still missing on the keypad, as Leon or Claire still have to scout them out. I'm split over whether I like this scene because, although it's cool to see events establishing things in past games, it becomes a little too, this is how Han Solo got his name at times. I find it interesting that this wall on the 3rd floor hasn't been destroyed yet, and that in both games you can pick up a key on the 3rd floor. This shutter on the 2nd floor is still down. Are we ever going to figure out where it leads? I do like how RE2 and RE3 share the same safe and locker combinations. That's a nice way of rewarding players who've already beaten RE2. You know what didn't survive the transition? The knife exploit against livers. Something I do want to nitpick over is that because Carlos and Tyrell are the ones who enter the RPD in RE3, there shouldn't be a reason for Nemesis to be anywhere near that location, even if his voice is supposed to be a tease in RE2's demo. Okay, let me tell you about the bullshit I had to do to get this video. In order to get this footage, I had to replay the RE2 one-shot demo. It's called one shot because there is a set playtime on the demo that locks the content away once it times out. To play the demo again, I had to either fuck around with Steam achievements or play the game on another platform. So I installed that demo on my PS4 just to get that one little thing they added after RE2 actually released. That demo should have a fully unlocked mode now that RE2 is already out, to allow players who've already played the game to experience that reference. So thinking over it, I had thought that there might be a possible explanation for why Leon can hear Nemesis at this point in the game, but the timeline of events still don't add up. There is a part after the first Nemesis fight where Jill walks across a fire engine's ladder towards Gunshop Kendo. On the opposite side of the street is the parking garage that's connected to the RPD. Now, if Nemesis had just recovered after the fight on the unfinished building, it could have landed somewhere near the vicinity of the RPD for Leon to hear its call. However, by the time Leon arrived at the RPD, Brad had already attacked Marvin, and Carlos and Tyrell were there to witness that event. And Carlos and Tyrell could only be at the RPD after Carlos rescues Jill a second time from Nemesis at the gas station.
Yeah, what's up? Derailed. Was anyone hurt?
Jill?
Ah, shit. Wait, what? Jill! Jill, what happened? Jill, come in! T, I gotta go.
Do what you gotta. I'll take care of Bard.
I always found this transition weird, because the moment before it happens makes it seem like there's going to be more exploration in the RPD based on Tyrell's comments.
This'll take some time. Look around, see if you can find anything useful.
Something that I think hurts RE3 in comparison to RE2, and even 3 Classic, is how disjointed most of the levels are with one another. Although the early part of RE2 is locked off once you reach the RPD, there's a lot of interconnectivity between the police station, the parking garage, the orphanage, the gun shop, and the sewer system. Once you get the trains running in RE3, you're pretty much brought to most of the levels. I compare it to how the B path begins in RE2. You don't get to see how Leon or Claire end up at the RPD. They're just there. When the train derails with Jill inside, the perspective shifts to Carlos and Tyrell as they investigate the RPD. Once that set piece is over, the game shifts back to Jill as she makes her way to the surface and crosses the bridge with Nemesis chasing after her.
Bitch can't even swim.
This part transitions immediately into a boss fight. After that fight, Jill gets poisoned, and Carlos takes over again. Although this is meant to call back to 3 Classic when Carlos goes to the hospital to synthesize a cure to revive Jill, Carlos still had to venture out of the chapel and through Raccoon City to get to the hospital. In the remake, the player is once again brought to the hospital. We don't know where it is located in relation to any other landmark in the game. I think it's one of the reasons the game feels like a less substantial installment than RE2. Along with the overall disjointed level design, the levels themselves are more like microcosms of the larger areas in RE2. The sewer level in RE2 loops back on itself and even returns to the RPD. The sewer level in RE3 is more or less Y-shaped, and the only real looping that occurs is opening a door with a battery pack, walking around to the closed-off door, and opening the padlock to retrieve the battery pack. Nest 2 is like 7 rooms total compared to RE2's Nest, which had 3 separate areas, and the east area looped back on itself twice. Once the player reaches a specific endpoint in Nest 2, the game transitions to another set piece. Also, all of the upgrades in this area are like super obvious, as if the devs weren't sure where they should place these last minute pickups. Another thing that I find weird, thinking back on it, is how much the early game emphasized Parasite as a new form of condition, but it only matters in one set piece at the power plant. The Brain Suckers, or Drain Demos, I don't know what these are, only exist in that one area and don't return anywhere else. It's weird how the game puts a lot of effort into explaining how herbs can purge parasites, but never return to that mechanic. Those enemies could have made a small comeback in the sewer level as another enemy type besides the Hunter Gammas. Because, I'll be honest, once you understand how to approach a Hunter Gamma, it never poses a threat on repeat runs. Speaking of parasites, as of this video, it sounds like Capcom is working towards remaking Resident Evil 4, and there is a lot of material in RE3 that supports that outcome.
No thanks, bro.
The Nemesis is described in files as a Tyrant-class BOW, infected with a parasite designed to improve control over the monster. One of the files you get in Nest 2 is a professor commenting on a colleague's parasite research, and passive-aggressively flexing on him about how viral research is superior. Also, Nemesis can do this to enemies, which basically makes them plagas. Another thing that supports the idea that Capcom is going back to Remake 4 is that there are more QTE-type inputs in 3 that didn't exist in 2. Also, Jill's nightmares about becoming infected are similar to Leon's nightmares in RE4. Another connection between Nemesis and the Plagas is that if you do enough damage to his second and third forms, the parasite just falls out of his chest, kind of like how the parasite sprouts from the back of El Gigantes in RE4. I like that RE3 made Paleheads canon. They were a cool enemy type, and made for a better version of upgraded zombies, compared to the Nemesis parasites. So I get that Capcom wanted to give Carlos a similar moment to the gas station fight in 3 Classic, but make it seem more heroic. But someone needs to tell them that their standoff set pieces are like whenever From Software includes a Sith fight. Every additional inclusion dilutes the impact of the original encounter. People were making fun of the blood spatter effect that zombies do in that set piece, and I don't blame them. That also happened in the Ghost Survivors, but I could accept it happening there as it was pushing the limits of the RE engine, and more importantly, it wasn't canon. I don't mind that the Gravedigger isn't in the remake. I didn't like that fight, and I'm pretty sure Capcom was worried that people were gonna think they rehashed the Gator set piece in 2. Also, the team likely wanted to keep the focus on Nemesis, and not have any other large enemy types take the spotlight away. I like how the cargo elevator that leads from the hospital to the storage area for Nest 2 uses the same plugs that Leon and Claire had to use when they escaped the nest in RE2. There's a lot of other parallel imagery in Nest 2's technology that's similar to its sister lab in RE2. Gonna be real, I prefer this fight over the one from 3 Classic. I had no idea how to activate those valves and just ended up dumping ammo into Nemesis to win. I do think it was a bad call for Nemesis to have the same attack patterns in this phase as he does in the second phase outside of the clock tower. I think it should have a form between its first fight and second fight, where it has more tentacles surrounding it like in 3 Classic, so that the third fight could feel more unique. This attack sucks though. Seriously, fuck that combo. Oh yeah, fuck this room in the hospital. Seriously, Capcom, give Carlos an underslung grenade launcher attachment to his rifle, or some kind of burst damage weapon like a shotgun for these set pieces. Someone said that they missed the freeze rounds from 3 Classic, and I agree. RE2 showed that they exist because Annette Birkin used them on William, and I'd rather have them over acid rounds every time. I know I'm coming off very negative over the game, but I do like Resident Evil 3, even with the relatively short campaign. There are places in the transition where I think content could be added as DLC to flesh out the overall length. Tyrell's journey from the RPD to the hospital would be a great segue. He could even return to the clock tower, as that was one of the bigger areas that was cut from the remake. It would also be cool to see what Murphy Seeker was doing that led to his unfortunate end. I hope that Capcom doesn't just focus on adding content to Project Resistance and fleshes out RE3's campaign. The game brings a lot of good quality of life additions, and it sucks that it has to follow up RE2 when it doesn't have the same amount of content to match its predecessor. That's my thoughts on the Resident Evil 3 remake. It's definitely got flaws, but I enjoyed the experience and have played it a dozen times over already.
It's finally over.
So long.